everybody. This is Mr. Withers, and the best teacher in the school is with me today in her first screencast. This is Miss Charlton.
Hello.
And we're going to talk to you today about respiration. So it's going to be a little bit different, and hopefully you enjoy. So the first thing is, we talked about this yesterday. We know that respiration involves a lot of things. The first thing that we talked about was breathing. We know that breathing is basically just an exchange of gases. We know that those gases are oxygen, which, oxygen, which we, nice, oh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oxygen, which we breathe in, CO2, which we breathe out. And so basically what happens is that as we breathe in oxygen. It goes down the trachea and down the throat and all the way into those beautiful lungs there. And fills up those lungs, and they're full of oxygen. Very nice.
Yes.
And what they do is they actually diffuse out into the bloodstream. So you've got a little bloodstream next to it. Since there's no oxygen in the bloodstream, the oxygen will diffuse out of the lungs and into the bloodstream, and that will take it to all the cells. And actually what your lungs have is they have these tiny little sacs called alveoli.
Yeah.
They're called alveoli, and that just increases the surface area of the lungs. And so that way more oxygen can diffuse across the membrane. Okay. As far as CO2 goes, CO2 is really the opposite. The carbon dioxide is already at your cells. It's a waste product as a result of the respiration. It's going to diffuse into the bloodstream and go back into the lungs, and then it's going to go out the lungs when you exhale, and it's going to go out the mouth and you breathe it out.
The respiratory system moves air through the nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, and bronchus to the alveoli, where the gas exchange between oxygen and carbon dioxide occurs. Breathing occurs because of the expansion and contraction of the lungs. The bronchi carrying the air subdivide into smaller branches called bronchioles. At the end of each bronchiole are the alveolar sacs. The alveolar sacs are surrounded by blood capillaries and contain millions of single-layer alveoli cells where the gas exchange takes place. Oxygenated air goes from the nose to the pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchus, and alveoli. By the process of diffusion, oxygen in the air moves from the alveoli to the capillaries. Carbon dioxide moves from the capillaries to the alveoli and is exhaled. This process is called respiration.
All right, now eating. We determined that eating is breaking down food. And when you're eating, you use enzymes.
And those enzymes are in your mouth and in your stomach and your intestines, we learned too.
Also, when we eat, we use our teeth.
Which just grinds the food up and makes it smaller.
Yep. And then to break down the food, stomach acid.
Yeah.
Does that break it down?
It does a little bit, and everybody wants to make stomach acid like Superman of the food world, but it just breaks things a little smaller. Enzymes really do all the work.
Okay. All right, and then all of our food is converted to glucose or lipids. Now, for the purpose of this is to get energy, right?
Yep.
All right, and then there's short-term energy. And we get short-term energy from glucose. We use it right away.
Right, because it's a simple sugar, it's easy to break down. So your body can just break it down really quickly and get energy from it.
And then long-term, we get that from fat
or lipids.
Lipids.
Yeah, and so the point of that is that it takes all the food that you make, and if we can't use it, it stores it as fat, and then we can get it later. And if it needs it, it'll convert it back to sugar and use it.
Yep. All right, macromolecules. The four major macromolecules, this is just a review. We know one is protein, carbohydrates, carbohydrates, lipids, and nucleic acids, and I'm not going to write it all out.
Right.
All right.
And actually, for purposes of what we're talking about, nucleic acids really isn't something that we eat and get energy from it. It's really the other three classes that we get our energy from. So you can almost cross that off as far as purposes of this discussion.
All right. So.
Not that it's not important.
Yep. And we use those actually for the macromolecules. We eat them. Breaking down macromolecules, it breaks the bonds. And so
that's the whole point of how we get energy from our foods, that we know that when we break bonds, we release energy. So the more bonds the food has, the more energy you can get from it.
Yep.
All right, as far as respiration goes, the book definition says the metabolic process where organisms obtain energy from organic molecules. That's kind of a mouthful. I don't even have that memorized. That's just stupid. So, like always, we want to make it simple for you, make something that you can remember. So we basically combined all the things that we've done so far and said that respiration simply is eating and breathing to make energy. Okay? We take the food that we eat, we take the oxygen that we breathe in, and we use it to make energy.
It's a lot easier to understand.
I agree. And we know that energy that we create is for our cells, and we know that it's in a molecule called adenosine triphosphate, which again is a mouthful. We know that is an ATP molecule. And if you remember, we talked about ATP molecules. They're the little adenosine molecule, and then it's got 3 little phosphates on it. And we didn't even really care what it looks like, but the fact is that it's got those 3 phosphates. That works.
Could look like that.
Yep, that works.
All right.
And so what's that square?
The adenosine.
Oh, that's the adenosine. Okay.
Yep.
And then the 3 phosphates. And then, again, the point of the 3 phosphates is that there's more energy than, say, ADP.
Yes.
Right? It's got less phosphates, less bonds.
All right, proton pumps. Proton pumps, they pump the protons across the membrane to make ATP.
And so what that is, if you remember a proton, basically they show a proton there, it'd be hydrogen, H+, and that's a proton, because it has lost an electron, so it's more positive than it was before. So it's really nothing big, it's just the fact that it's a proton. But there's these enzymes in your cells, in your membranes of your cells. That's an enzyme. And it has a name, I don't know it, but it's an enzyme. And those are pumps. Basically like when we talked about the cell membrane going from lake to lake, it'd be the same kind of thing, a little more specific. And it only lets protons through, and when it does that, that's what allows your cell to make ATP. So this is actually how it happens. Your cells break down the food. From that food, they get hydrogen ions, and those hydrogen ions are then pumped across membranes to make ATP. So that's kind of like the cheap version of how it works.
So over here is ATP?
Right, and so it's making ATP from it. And you notice you're getting a buildup of hydrogen over there, so it's pumping them across, actually building up a concentration on the other side.
Right.
So it's not diffusion. We do know that respiration occurs in the mitochondria. That's the organelle in the cell that we use to make ATP. And so there's a kind of a computer-generated picture of what a mitochondria might look like. The other picture is a little more of a cartoon picture, but I like it because it shows those folds in the mitochondria. The whole point of all those folds is, again, increasing surface area. And that's important because now you've got membranes there. You can see it says membranes. All those membranes are proton pumps. And so what we can do is we can pump protons across all those membranes. And since there's so many, we've got lots and lots of proton pumps that we can do. And so therein lies the reason that the mitochondria can make so much energy.
Is that right? It pumps it across
Yep,
here?
absolutely.
All right. Formula.
As far as the formula goes, we've done the formula
Yeah.
several times, but this is just a little more specific of a version of it. So first thing is you can see that we have oxygen, which we've talked about. More specifically, though, we have 6 oxygen molecules. So that's oxygen there. Next to it, the C6H12O6 is our glucose. So there's our eating and breathing part. And what we're going to make out of it is we're going to make just what we had done before. We're going to make carbon dioxide, we're going to make water, and we're going to make energy, And in this case, I gave you an actual number of ATP. That probably won't mean anything to you now, but the fact is you get 36 ATP molecules from one sugar molecule. Now imagine if you were eating a complex carbohydrate, which has hundreds or thousands of glucoses. You can see why you can get so much energy from your food.
Yeah.
I guess the one thing maybe we forgot is probably to add enzymes
right
above
here.
the area. Yeah, that's your catalyst.
We'll write it here.
Yep, so those would be enzymes.
Whoops.
Oh, that's a nice Y.
Here, and then it would also be here, right?
Yep. Yep, sure would. And so enzymes speed up that reaction.
Mm-hmm.